The gym smelled of sweat, leather mats, and determination. It was a place where bodies were pushed beyond limits and where egos clashed in silence. The walls were decorated with posters of legendary fighters, men and women who had carved their names into history with sweat and blood. In one corner, a group of students were finishing their drills, and in the middle of it all stood Master Daniel, the black belt instructor known for his strictness, pride, and sometimes his cutting sense of humor. Daniel wasn't a bad man, but he carried the weight of arrogance that often came with years of being undefeated. His students admired him, feared him, and in some ways worshipped him. He had made champions out of average kids and broken egos that came in inflated with pride. But today, something unusual was about to unfold, something that would be remembered long after the sound of the day's sparring had faded. Near the entrance, standing timidly in oversized sneakers, was a little girl no older than 11. Her name was Aria. She looked fragile, almost too delicate for the brutal atmosphere of the martial arts gym. She clutched a worn-out backpack that looked too big for her frame, her hair tied in two uneven braids, and her eyes darting nervously around as the group of trainees laughed, stretched, and sparred. Aria had come with her older brother, Ethan, who had recently joined the gym to build confidence and discipline. She wasn't supposed to be on the mat. She wasn't even supposed to be noticed, but Master Daniel had a sharp eye, and he noticed everything. "Who's that?" Daniel asked in his booming voice, pointing at her with the hand that once broke boards with a single strike. "My sister, sir," Ethan said, his voice shaky. He knew Daniel didn't like distractions during training. Daniel smirked, his lips curling into a grin that carried a mix of humor and mockery. "Your sister, huh? Does she fight?" The room erupted in laughter. The thought of the frail-looking girl throwing punches was a joke in itself. Some of the trainees chuckled, others whispered, and a few simply shook their heads. Aria lowered her gaze, clutching the straps of her backpack tighter. Ethan's cheeks burned with embarrassment. "No, sir, she's just here to watch." But Daniel wasn't done. Perhaps he was bored. Perhaps he wanted to entertain his students with a little humor. He stepped closer, his black belt swaying lightly as he walked, and stood in front of the girl. "Tell me, little one," he said, bending down to meet her eyes. "Do you think you can fight me?" The gym exploded in laughter again. Some students even slapped their thighs, enjoying the absurdity of the moment. To them, this was nothing but harmless fun. But Aria's lips trembled, and for a moment she said nothing. Then, quietly but firmly, she replied, "Yes." The laughter stopped like a record scratch. Daniel blinked, then chuckled. "Yes, did you hear that?" he said, turning to his students. "She thinks she can fight me." A wave of murmurs rippled through the gym. Nobody expected her to answer like that. Nobody expected her to speak at all. Ethan tugged at her sleeve, whispering harshly, "Aria, stop. Don't say that." But Aria's eyes were fixed on Daniel's. There was no fear in them now, only a calmness that unsettled even the experienced fighters in the room. Daniel straightened up, scratching his chin, amused. "All right then. Let's give her a chance. A friendly spar, nothing serious, just to show her what real martial arts feels like." The crowd cheered. They wanted to see the spectacle. To them, this was comedy. A little girl standing up to a black belt, impossible. Aria set her backpack down in the corner and walked toward the mat. Her steps were small, almost hesitant, but there was something in the way she carried herself, something disciplined, something precise. Daniel, still grinning, adjusted his stance. "Okay, sweetheart, don't worry. I'll go easy on you." But what happened next silenced the entire gym. The moment Daniel raised his hand to demonstrate a basic stance, Aria moved. It wasn't clumsy. It wasn't random. It was sharp, calculated, and faster than anyone expected. Her foot swept the ground, her body turned, and in one swift motion, she executed a perfect roundhouse kick that stopped an inch from Daniel's face. The sound of her sneaker, cutting through the air, echoed in the silent gym. Gasps filled the room. A few jaws dropped. Ethan's eyes widened in disbelief. Daniel froze, his grin fading into shock. The kick had been flawless, not the kind of move you'd learn from watching YouTube videos or practicing alone in the backyard. This was trained, polished, dangerous. Before Daniel could react, Aria stepped back into stance, her little fists raised, her body balanced like she had done this 1,000 times before. The students whispered frantically, "Did you see that? That was perfect form. She's trained. She has to be." Daniel lowered his hands, narrowing his eyes. His pride pricked, his ego challenged. He decided to test her further. "Not bad," he muttered. "Let's see what else you've got." And so, the spar began. What started as a joke turned into a battle of precision. Daniel threw a slow jab, careful not to hurt her, but Arya sidestepped effortlessly, her movement fluid and exact. He tried a low kick, and she blocked it with a textbook parry that stunned him. The gym was dead silent now. Nobody laughed. Nobody whispered. They only watched as the little girl moved like water, anticipating every move, countering every strike, her small body filled with an energy that couldn't be denied. Within minutes, Daniel was sweating, not from exertion, but from the realization that he wasn't in control anymore. His joke had turned into a revelation. And then, it happened. As Daniel leaned forward to fake a strike, Arya spun with a speed that blurred her braids through the air and landed a palm strike right against his chest. Not hard enough to injure, but firm enough to push him back 2 steps. The crowd gasped again. Daniel stumbled, caught himself, and looked at her with something he hadn't felt in years: respect. The silence in the gym was absolute. Nobody moved. Nobody laughed. The little girl lowered her fists and bowed respectfully, her breathing steady. "Thank you for sparring, sir," she said softly. And that was it. The black belt, the undefeated instructor, stood frozen while his students stared at the 11-year-old girl who had just silenced an entire gym with nothing but skill, discipline, and courage. For the first time in a long time, Daniel smiled, not the arrogant smile of a teacher mocking his students, but the humble smile of a man who had just been taught a lesson himself. "Arya," he said slowly, "where did you learn that?" The girl glanced at her brother, then back at Daniel. "My dad taught me. Before he passed away." The room fell even quieter, the weight of her words pressing on every heart in the room. Daniel bowed deeply. "Then your father raised a warrior." The gym erupted, not in laughter this time, but in thunderous applause. And Ethan, who had always seen his sister as the quiet, timid little girl, stared in awe. For the first time, he realized the truth. Arya wasn't just his little sister. She was something much greater.